Hey everyone, in this example, I want to show you how we can create an automated report using Excel data. I have some sample Excel data here that will generate a graph that we can then send to our teammates' email inboxes every day on a cron trigger. So every day we can take some Excel data, create a graph, and send it to anyone who needs that graph. Let's talk to how we might create this, how we can host it, and how we can get it set up to automatically fire every single day. Let's get started. Starting out, we'll need a system that allows us to fire an execution daily on a cron trigger, which is just a time-based automation. In this example, we're using WayScript to do this. We'll create a new layer and we'll just say send email graph daily as our layer name. You can name yours whatever you would like if you're following along with me. So this is the interface inside of a WayScript layer, and what we can do is directly develop inside of it. So we'll click on this develop tab to the left and it will create an interface that looks like this. Looks very similar to a dev environment, which it tries to emulate. We have a terminal, a log tab, and a file browser. At this point, let's create a few files. We'll pull in a requirements.txt. Then we'll create a Python file. We'll say graphmaker.py. And finally, what we'll need to do is pull in our information. So my Excel graph, I will drag and drop it in, and that will be the data source that we'll get our information from and create our graphs with. With our data uploaded, we'll use some Python code to create the graphs and to send the email. So I will just copy all this code over, and you can find this code in the description and linked on GitHub as well. And I will paste this in. Don't worry if none of this makes sense. We'll talk through all of it as we go. Talking through our Python code very briefly, we have quite a few imports here. Pandas, matplotlib, and plotly are great for working with tabular data and creating graphs using that data. Sendgrid is the service that we'll be using in this example to send an email with this attachment. Base64 and codex will just help in formatting the file and sending it in the correct format. OS is an optional import here. In most scenarios, you would want to use it to access secrets and store important information and not just write it out in plain text within your Python script. I will be writing it out in this Python script, so it's not a best practice to do that. But I want to show you what the key looks like for SendGrid, so I'll put it in plain text in this example. But ideally, you don't do that and you store it as a secret. So as we're moving through our code, you see that we're using a pandas library to create a data frame that reads in our Excel data. Using that, we can get rid of this print statement. Using that, we are creating our group of information. So our specific information in this case has a bunch of production numbers, and the graph that we're producing is we want to know the total amount of units produced per shift. So pandas has a very easy way to get that information, and that is by using this group by method on the shift. Finally, once we do that, we are creating our bar chart here using plotly, which is this import. With that bar chart, we're adding a little bit of information to it. In this line here, what we actually do is we're creating a PDF file programmatically, and that will be written into our file manager. Finally, we need to send that email with an attachment that includes this. So we're creating an attachment using these lines of code here. These lines are all from the SendGrid documentation, so don't worry too much if you don't understand any of this. But essentially, all we're doing is formatting our file to be read in correctly to the SendGrid API. Finally, we create a message that we want to send. A few of these fields are important. So the way that SendGrid works is once you create an account, the email that you use to create that account will be your from email address. Then you can put in a list of 2 email addresses that you want to send this email to. Finally, we make sure that we have the file attached. Then we create a SendGrid client. This is my API key here. If, like I was saying earlier, ideally you don't write this in plain text, but instead you use os.environ.get and the name of your secret. Finally, we are looking at a response and we're printing it back here. So now that all of our code is in place, we need to do a few things in our SendGrid account to make this work. So within a SendGrid account that you have created and signed into, what we need to do is our first step will be to click on your account, and then you want to go to settings and then API keys. This is where you will create an API key. So you can create it by clicking this button. In this example, let's go ahead and provide full access, and you would name it here. That will provide you with a key that you can copy, and that will go into your script right here. Once you have that, we have another step within SendGrid that we'll have to do. So how SendGrid works is we have to verify our sender to send an email using that email address. To do that, we will make sure this panel is open within settings and then sender authentication. At this point, we need to verify a sender, and you see I've already done one here, but you can click this verify a single sender and go through the form here. This will make sure that your SendGrid authentication is all set up so you won't have any issues sending out an email. And now, with all of the hard stuff out of the way, what we'll do is we want to send this email daily, right? So we need to create a trigger within WayScript. We'll do that by making sure that this triggers panel, this lightning bolt at the bottom, is clicked, and then we can click cron trigger. Our command to run will just be the execution of our Python script. In our case, that is Python graph maker.py, and then we can choose the mode. In our example, we want to run this every day, so we'll need to use the custom mode. And now we will be using a resource for this. So this will be linked in the description as well. But just to show you this, it is crontab.guru, and this provides us different types of cron syntax that we can use in this cron tab. What we'll do is we will copy this and paste it in. So if you would like to use a different cron syntax, feel free to. It doesn't matter. There's all sorts of different frequencies that we can run this at. And once we have that in place, we'll close out of this. And finally, we will go and click on deploy to the left and choose deploy. Once we hit this deploy option, what it does is pushes this to a prod state so that cron task will automatically fire at the frequency that you've set within the trigger. So at this point, it's all set up. It will automatically create our emails using our data here and send out emails to anybody in our to list here. SendGrid sometimes can be weird with Gmail accounts, which is what is happening here. And all you have to do is verify and say it looks safe. And then it should go into your inbox from there. At first, it might be in your spam, so check there. And that attachment is generated for us. So if you have any questions about this or need any help setting this up, please let us know and we'll be happy to help.